Hey everyone, thanks for jumping on with us today. Hope you all are having a good week and staying safe. My name is Lauren Conaway. I'm the marketing manager here at Principal LED, and I'll be working with Jeff today in order to bring this training to you all. So please, if you have any questions while you're on with us, send those over through the questions tab, and we'll definitely get those answered before we wrap up today's presentation. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Jeff and let him get started.
All right, thank you very much, Lauren. Hi, everyone. Thanks again for joining this week. We have a good topic today: stats and title blocks. Of course, we took last week off, but if you're new to this training, this is the fifth one that we've done. We have 4 other trainings that have been recorded and that you can sign up to and watch and listen, and they're each about an hour long. So that's what we'll be doing today: stats and title blocks. And this is the basic agenda. There's a fair amount to cover today because I want to get to the end and go through the process of creating your own title block. And I think that's a big part of the value that we bring with the whole title block and stat topic today is to customize and make your own. So I'll give a couple of introductions. We'll talk about the different elements of a title block. Real quick about just in the software how to use the title block, how to create the stats, and merge your layout into the title block. I'll review a couple of our title blocks, a couple of Principal LED title blocks, and just go through some of the elements in those title blocks, and then we'll get into creating your own. So as we go, if you have questions, put them in, as Lauren mentioned, into the chat, and she will interrupt me and ask the question. I don't mind if you do that. As you know, if you've been on here, I'll continue to talk and talk fast to to get through the content as best I can. So with that, I did mentioned before, so these are the actual topics of the previous sessions that we've done. So these are the things that I won't be talking about today. We did power flow, the first one. We did sign cabinets and cloud signs. We did a session on data import, data cleanup was a good session, and then the production edition as well. Next week we'll be doing power supply loading. And then vectorizing, on-screen digitizing, and freehand drawing is going to be the for now the last one. And we may add additional sessions, but that's kind of the other sessions. So as an introduction here to stats and title blocks, title blocks serve a variety of purposes in your shop, both internally and externally. And really, there's a lot of information that can go into one of these templates. Certainly internally, the first thing that you think about probably with LED Wizard and creating this is to estimate cost and to quote, right, to win a job. And I think that's obviously the first thing that you create a title block and use it for. Secondly, maybe internally you use it to figure out what products you need to order to manage your inventory. We create data here about LEDs and drivers, but other materials as well. Maybe your face material, your back material, trim cap, return coil. This is among others. These are all items that you can create data about, and you can order materials and manage your inventory. Third, to produce the job, right? And we talked about this last week or 2 weeks ago with the production edition. There's a lot of data here that helps you to produce the job, right? And there's files you can export. So your production folks ought to be seeing these layouts as well, right? They ought to be seeing how this was created, how it was presented. Finally, internally, to keep records, right? This is, a title block PDF of a job is, in my opinion, the cleanest way to find something, to reference something, to look up a past job. What did we do for so-and-so customer? within Principal, we have, who knows how many thousands of layouts over a several year period, saved by date, saved by customer. So it's a great record keeping, I think, for jobs that have gone through the shop. Externally, of course, to present this to your customer, right? To win the job, to say, here's our layout. It's professional, it's clean, it's got all the data that customer would need to see. You can use this to facilitate permits and approvals, right? You need paperwork, you need to be able to describe, what we're doing with the job. This becomes part of the package. Working with other vendors, right? Is there someone else that you're working with on the job? Is someone else going out on site with you? Is there a wholesale shop that's involved, or this or that? So working with other partners is a key part. And finally, and you may not have thought about this, hopefully you have, but presenting this to a UL rep, right? When the UL rep comes knocking and you say, hey, here are my PDFs, here are all the jobs that we did, last month or whatever the time period is. Here are the specific products, they're in the SAM, this is how we wired it. So it's a great method of satisfying your UL rep. Okay, so that's just kind of an overview, I think, of some of the uses of a title block. Now, in LED Wizard 8, we made actually some pretty big changes on this topic, and we took stats and title blocks and we really merged those together into the same concept here. Previously in LED Wizard 7, we had, you could generate stats and then you could merge into a title block, but those were kind of distinct. Now, everything has its place, right? There's a data field for stats. It's a clean and consistent format across jobs. If you make a change, it's easy to update the title block template, update the stats. There are multiple title block templates available now in an easy to use drop-down list, and you just pick the title block that you want to use for that given job. Of course, as I mentioned, you can create your own title block templates, and these can be derived from another template, even from another program perhaps, or you can design it from scratch. And then there's also an option here for really one-step population and merging into the title block. And we've gone through that in the previous sessions. You've got a clean layout. Hey, I just want to make that layout, create my stats, merge in the title block essentially in one step. So that's a nice productivity gain there. Okay, so that's kind of the intro, and I'm bringing this slide up again because I just want to highlight that with LED Wizard 8, this is the opportunity to have your own custom title block template, right? If you use Easy Layout Builder, if you use our layout team, it's our template. It's the Principal LED template. If you have LED Wizard 8 in-house, then it's your template, or it could be your template. And so there's a little bit more customization that you can do on this by utilizing LED Wizard 8 in your own shop. And I should go back and also mention that this is not, there's nothing about this process that has to do with a production edition. Okay, this is all in the standard free edition, creating stats and creating your title block. Okay, so let's look at what some of the elements are in one of our title blocks. And the first item is the content area. And this is a rectangle that you define where the layout actually goes. Okay, so all this stuff on the top and all this stuff on the bottom, that's the generic template that'll always be there. But your actual design will go and fit into this rectangle. I shouldn't say fit into the rectangle. The title block actually scales up to fit the size of your job. So it's the title block that scales. It's not your layout that scales. LED Wizard always works in full scale. So the title block will change size. So there are text objects, and there are really three types of text objects, and I'll talk more about this in the next slide. But there's static text that doesn't change layout to layout, and that might be this legal statement down here. There's editable text like title, change me, what is the title of the job? And then there's dynamic text that will update and populate with the data from that job. And that's a dynamic data variable. We'll talk a lot about that. Okay, so text objects, 3 different kinds. You can have logos and graphics. These logos and graphics can be bitmaps, like the principal LED logo. They could be vector objects, a vector graphic. Again, these are static items, something that you import into the title block, and it's there for all jobs. And then finally, there's the structure of it. There's whatever boxes, text fields, however I want to sort of design this visually. Fields and colors, I can, my text can be a different color. I can do different fonts, bolded fonts or sizes or something. So just kind of the basic layout. And there are title blocks that I've seen a lot of title blocks over the years, and some are very simple, and some are very complex. And so it just depends on the data that you need and how you want to design that. So a lot of different options. So in looking deeper at the idea of these different data fields, these different text fields. So there's static data, and I've highlighted the, and this is a different template than the one I just had. The principal LED, our address and all that, and then down here the legal statement, static, doesn't change, isn't edited, the same for all layouts. Editable data, and I'll talk in a second about the job tab, but editable data, what's the face material, how is it illuminated? Those are examples of editable data. The title, there might be a notes field, or there might be a job number, there might be a customer number, things like this. These are text fields that you would manually edit for the job, right? The software wouldn't know, what title you want to use, for example, for that layout. And then there's dynamic data variables, and this is really the heart of it. I mean, this is most of what you want to have in here, and that's in the blue. We have a date field, we have the designer, depth, dimensions. This is a cabinet template, so we have row spacing, we have mounting brackets, amp draw, et cetera, and then here the actual, LEDs and names and part numbers and how many, and power supplies, same thing. So that's really the data that it's automatically populated from the job. Everything has its place. In some cases, there might be an NA, and that's fine if it's not appropriate. But this is really, I think what we'll spend most of our time talking about is the dynamic data variables. And there are a lot of these, and I'll show you the drop-down list. It goes on and on. So there's a lot of options for the kind of data that you can capture. Okay, so I mentioned the job tab, and the job tab is in the software, it's in the same area as the PowerFlow tab. It's the one furthest to the right. And this is where you can select a few more custom fields for the job, and for example, face material. And this is a drop-down list, and this is actually customizable. So you can put in your own face materials, and you can define them using various fields, and so this would be something you can put into the template. And I think I mentioned this before. This is not a face material that you're choosing that drives the layout. Okay, this is a face material that you're putting in just to say that this is the material. So whether you pick, a thick or a thin or a translucent or not, that's actually not an input to the layout. It's sort of after the fact. There's lighting, there's face lit, halo lit, push through. I think those are the options that we have. Your designer name, the page size. So we do some scaling, for example, of power supply labels based on the page size so that it's readable. So you want to put in the page size that you're using. And then this one is not actually something that goes into the title block template, but you can put in a custom power supply margin if that's the way you operate, or for a certain job. I just showed a customer this yesterday. So we load to 100%, But if you wanted to create a 10 or 20% margin, for example, then you can put that in here in the job tab. Okay, but for the most part, the data in the job tab is designed to go back into the title block template. So here in our template, here are two items, the drawn by and the face material. Okay, so and we'll go through this here in a minute, but actually in the software, it's very easy to to utilize this merging capability. In the Power Flow tab, the item here that says select auto title block. So this is where your list of title block templates will go. And I probably have more than most customers where we have Bounce, that's our partner in Australia. GE Current has their template. We have some generic metric and US letter templates. And then for Principal, we have 3 templates in here, and I'll be talking about 2 of these. So as you create new title block templates, custom, you give them a name and they show up in this list, and then you can choose them. And these title blocks, by the way, are saved in the app data folder, and I'll show you how to get to that. So for example, if you update the software and things like that, it doesn't change the data that you have in the app data folder. So you can also use the auto title block option, and this is the productivity feature I was mentioning. So if you check that prior to doing the population, and you have your title block selected, it's just going to merge right in there after the layout's done, and you don't have to separately go in here and click on it. Oh, and one other thing, and this is a difference from the way the LED Wizard 7 worked, but there's a stats button and there's a merge button in in the property bar at the top of the screen. And if you've merged into the template and then you've made some changes, which I do all the time, maybe you see something and you want to make a little edit, you just click on stats again, and that updates the stats. Okay. If you do merge here or merge over here, it'll ask you if you're actually wanting to reload the template, and sometimes that's appropriate too. You can change, you can create a layout and merge it to a template, and then change your mind and say I want to use this other template instead. In which case you select it and merge, and it'll remerge it. But if you're just updating something, you added a module or something, then you just click on stats. Okay, so that's actually very easy. The main part of the work in a title block is creating it, right? Is setting it up and making sure that it has all the data that you want to capture. So here are two, really the two main title block templates that we use within Principal. And this rectangle is the content area, and this is what it looks like when it's blank. So all these fields are essentially empty. And I'll show you what's behind these NA values and the data of how we do that. But this is, a title block template should be designed and formatted again for us here in 8.5 by 11 landscape, I think is the default, right? If you're doing metric in A4 page, right, which is similar but a little bit different aspect ratio. That way, when this scales up, when you go to export it to a scale PDF, you want that title block to fill the page. You don't want a lot of wasted space. Some of these layouts are very large. You want to show them as big as possible. The stick template, which is quite a bit more complex. All of these, show well you can see this, but all of these are unique modules and part numbers. This is really for our stick products, right? So if you remember from the cabinet webinar we did, you can do a layout and you can have 5 or 6 or more different stick products, different lengths, and so these would all be listed here. And this would support also actually up to 3 different what we call core series. So you could do sticks, you could have Quick Mod 2, and you could have Patriot, for example. Of course, multiple power supplies, and some of these labels obviously are carrying over the outside of the template, but that's just how we define that data. The actual data fits. Uh, and that's kind of the same thing up here. These things do run over a little bit, only because our definition of that data variable might be a little bit longer. And these actually format a little bit differently, but you can see, for example, here where it says date, it says $date, and that's a variable for today's date. $dims, that's the variable for dimensions. $can depth, et cetera, et cetera. So those are the actual text values that we put in there that define these items. Okay. It's not as difficult as it seems. I'll go in and show you. These are all predefined, and you just select the ones that you want. Okay. Any questions, Lauren, at this point? I'm going to get into how to make a custom template.
We don't have any right now, but just as a reminder, please feel free to send those in through the questions tab if you have them.
All right, terrific. So, so custom templates. So there really are, I think, 3 ways to go about doing this. And one is to start from your template. Okay, so most shops will have a title block template or a set of title block templates that perhaps you're using in a different program. Okay, so if you have a template defined in Illustrator or in Corel or in FlexiSign or whatever, you can take that, create a PDF of that, bring that in, and that can be the starting point for your template in LED Wizard. And I'll talk later about workflow kind of in my final thoughts, but that's one way to do it. You can start with this. Second is to start from one of ours and customize that. And I've done that, helped out some customers to just to start from ours because it already has some formatting, right? It already has some text objects and things. So that's the second option. And third is to start from scratch. And actually, that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to start from scratch, and we're going to design the first few steps of a title block template. Again, I mentioned the aspect ratio should match, and really include all the data that you feel is important or needed. If you're thinking about the slide before where I talked about internal and external, maybe there's one template you use internally and a totally different template that you use externally, and that's fine. As I mentioned, if you create a layout and you merge it with a title block template, you can export that. You can take that same layout, change the title block, and merge it again and export a different PDF. And now you've taken the same file, the same layout, which hasn't changed, and you've created 2 different PDFs and exported 2 different PDFs out of the same file. And that's a pretty legit way to do it. So, so what I would say, if we're starting from scratch, we'd start with a rectangle that's 8.5 by 11, or defined at an 8.5 by 11 page. We create a content area. Okay, so if you see in the picture, we have this rectangle, and in the name up here, we call it content, and that's important to do. And again, that tells the software that this is where the layout goes. It'll fit within that window, within that box. Second is you have to go to the LED menu and select the option that says this document is a title block. And the reason for that is that a title block file has certain properties, and among those properties is the ability to scale up and down. Okay, so again, the title block template will scale up to fit your design. And if when you merge, you want to change the size of that title block to better match your layout, let's say you rearrange some of the components in your layout to better fit, you can then scale the title block, and all of those title block items will scale together. Okay, so that's kind of one of the key features about a title block file. But otherwise, it saves it as an LW8 file, the same file extension that we use for a normal layout. And you want to save that file in the app data folder. And on my system, this is my path. It would be, this is the standard with your name. And I'll go through this file into the English title block folder. And that's where all the title blocks live. So as long as you save it into that folder, then it's going to show up in the list. okay? And I have this, I'll show you how to get to that, and I also have it as a shortcut. So, first thing I would do in the title block, create the basic structure with some shapes, put in some static text, import some static graphics. Again, if you're starting from scratch, we'll create some text labels, right? So here, power supplies, module count, basic labels, and then we'll create the variable data text fields. Okay, these are the text fields like here, $ module count and names. Okay, and that you get to that in this edit variable text option in the text menu. And that brings up this little dialog here. And when you click down this list here, you see this gigantic laundry list of potential data variables. Okay, and this is pretty extensive. And actually we add to this all the time because somebody asks us to to create a new data variable that perhaps we hadn't thought of or hadn't been requested before. So this is a list that is changing, and you can, as I mentioned here, you can add additional text before or after. So this one says module count and name, so that's pretty descriptive. But others, maybe you'd want to put an additional label on it. Maybe you'd want to put some text before. You can put multiple data variables together, and so we have some that have 2 or 3 of these. Just put a space between them, and then you'll get multiple multiple items in there. Okay, so that's kind of how the data variables work. Okay, so I guess that's mostly it for the PowerPoint. I just wanted to mention a few final thoughts, and that is, you really want to capture and use the data that LED Wizard generates. There is a lot of data, potential data, that comes out of an LED Wizard file. And you can derive new title block templates as needed. Once you have an initial title block template, excuse me, you can make a vertical version, or you can make a version that supports certain products. You can make a title block template just for a particular customer, a big customer that you have, that maybe there's information that they're requesting. And then consider your workflow, where you do what, right? So I know that there are customers who, after they do the layout in LED Wizard, they then export it to another program for the sole purpose of creating the title block template. And I would argue that maybe we should just stay and do that in LED Wizard, right? So that's an option. And it's not a bad idea to start fresh on a new set of templates. And this reminds me of the ham story, if anybody's heard or some variation of the ham story. So the story is that there's a family together for Thanksgiving, and this little girl is watching her mother prepare the meal, and she takes the ham and she cuts the end of the ham off. And the little girl says, "Mommy, why are you cutting the end of the ham off?" And she says, "Well, I don't know, I learned that from my mother." So the little girl goes to the grandmother and says, "Grandma, why do you cut the end of the ham off?" And she says, "Oh, I don't know, I learned that from my mother." So the little girl goes to the great grandmother and says, "Great grandma, why did you cut the end of the ham off?" And she says, "Well, because my oven was too small." And so it's just something that gets, the analogy is something that gets carried down. And if you don't ask or don't challenge, I've seen some title block templates that are derived probably over years and years, and a lot of the fields are not used, or they're empty, or they're irrelevant. Even our own template, sometimes I wonder why something is in there. So starting fresh, using the procedures we'll talk about, maybe you can create a new fresh template that captures the information that's actually used. But I've seen some ridiculously complex templates that are like an eye chart just to figure out what is in there. So anyway, so we'll talk about how to how to make a new one. Okay, so let's look at, if there's no questions, let's look at a couple of I've made just a couple of layouts here. So I'm going to merge into the principal landscape template. I just want to show a couple things here. And let's see, I didn't load this with power supplies yet, so why don't we do that? What module do I have here? I have Patriot, so I need to use. So that's a warning, by the way, not to use the wrong driver. Okay, so so I've got my driver in here. I've got my layout, and if you remember from from the blank template, down here we have I've got one one Patriot large, 69 Patriot mediums. I've got one driver, my amp draw. Up here we have today's date. We have the title, my height, and the depth. It's like I messed up the drawing in some way. I've got 4 and 5 inches on the depth, and face material. So again, to point out, static up here, we've got max modules per series, and that has 2 items here. We have a separate template that supports multiples. That's not the one that I'm showing. So this down here is data variable that's automatically filled in. This is static, and then something like this. So the title block comes in as a group, as one group. So you have to do ungroup for when you want to go in here and edit. Okay, so this is just a text field. All right, so if I do T for text, I can put a title in here. I can also use just the normal text tool here, but that's a text object, and you can change that text object. You can scale it. You can change the font. You can do whatever you want. The face material, I mentioned the job tab. So here's the job tab. Okay, so I might want to say 7328. This is face lit. I'm the designer. My page size is US letter landscape. Okay. When I create those and I select those, if I go back into the layout, get the field up here, I click on stats. Okay. And that will update the stats. And now my 7328 comes in the face material, and then down here, this is where we have it. It's facelit. Okay, so you can put the information in the job tab before or after you merge into the template. In that case, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so our template, I think, has probably less information than a lot of shop templates, because we're not producing these signs. We're creating a layout for you. So we don't have, for example, area and perimeter, which I feel like for a shop are 2 really key key metrics. Okay, so that's the one we use. That's the one we most often use for channel letters and that sort of thing. So let's look at this cabinet, and I'm going to forgot to load these 120. I'm going to merge this, and this is the stick one. Okay, principal landscape sticks. Merge that in, and remember that if you select auto title block when you first do the layout, then this will all happen automatically. So this is how this template is filled. This has a little bit more information than the last one. We have row spacing, and we have mounting brackets. We have multiple. Remember, this goes up to, I don't know, 10 different sizes, I think. So multiple sticks listed, and then our driver down here. Okay, so so these are 2 of the templates that we most often use. And before we get into creating one, I just want to show what this looks like in terms of where does this come from and how does this work. So I mentioned the idea of the data variable. Okay, so if I go to the text menu and I say edit variable text. Okay, and that's what brings up this little dialog box. And you can see here that the data variable is $_ total amps. Okay, and then A is actually the label. So that is, and this can be, so if I change this and I just say amps, okay, it's gonna repopulate that, and now it says 220 amps. Okay. If I want to change this, I mentioned that there's a an enormous list of data variables that are possible. So this right now is a total list, and some of these things are you see multiple numbers on here. Okay, so we have the capacity here for layouts that have multiple products, to have a number of these in here. So some of these are just different numbers. But there's stuff for power supplies, there's parts, there's all kinds of different totals, things like that. There's variables for feet and for meters. So you can go in here and you can sort of play with these and find the ones that are appropriate. Okay. So that's how this works. So the $, and then the data is populated according to that data variable. Okay. All right. So here's a template that I started playing with this morning, just in preparation, and this is we can probably just start from this one, I think. So I created a layout that is more or less a 8.5 by 11 aspect ratio. This might be a little bit wide, and I created a rectangle that's going to be my outside border, and the actual layout area is is a little bit bigger, okay, because there is a little bit of margin. So, and this is important. So you want to make sure that dotted line is all the way around the outside of your template. This box right here is the content box, okay, and this again is where my layout will go. So you want to make sure that that's pretty big in the layout. I can even maybe bring this out a little bit. I have imported a little LED Wizard logo. If I turn colors on and off, this is a bitmap. Okay, bitmaps can be scaled. That can be positioned anywhere. I added a text field. This is a legal statement. Okay, if I do shortcut T for text, add legal info here. It doesn't have to be legal info. This could be, our layouts assume a certain kind of face, or watch out for this or watch out for that. This can be anything really that as sort of a default legal statement or text statement that you want to have, and that's that's pretty common. And then I created some just some text boxes up here, and again, this can be organized in any way that you want. I just drew text fields, and if you do Shift and Control, you can copy a text field on a on a line here, so that they're perfectly aligned. So that's how I created. Oops, that's how I created these fields here. And then I went in and I said, okay, let's make a label that is for module count. And so I just entered text that said module count in a bold font, and then this is my actual data label. Okay, module count, and I did the same for power supplies. Okay, so and I saved this file and I called it test.tb. All right, and again, the place where you have to save this, the way to find the right folder is to go in the tools menu and say open app data folder. Okay, the app data folder is actually where we where we put files that are common across the software. Okay, so that's, you want to go into System, Title Blocks, and then EN, okay? And you can, you can copy this, you can pin it, which is what I've done, so you know where that is. But that's the shortcut to get to this folder. And there are other files in this folder as well. But this is our app data folder. So here are all of the title blocks that I have, okay, including this test one that I made this morning, okay. So once I put that in there, it shows up here in my list, all right. And it shows I don't have to restart anything. It just automatically shows up in the list. Okay, so I'm going to go back to this layout that we've created. Okay, and this is, obviously very simple. But instead of principal landscape sticks, I'm going to take this test DB and I'm going to say merge. Okay, and this is my layout. This is my template. Okay, so those data fields have been replaced. Again, I have one Patriot large, 69 Patriot mediums. Now, what's neat about this is as I work on my title block file and as I edit it, I can update this in real time and just by reloading the title block. So I want to go back into here and we're going to make a group out of these two. I click D for duplicate. I want to bring this over here. Then I'm going to ungroup this. I'm using a couple of shortcut keys here, but I'm going to go the module count, change copy, or T for text, and this is going to be perimeter now. Okay, this, the actual data variable, again, text menu, edit variable text, and it's not going to be module count names anymore. It's going to be total perimeter. Okay, total perimeter feet, total perimeter meters. We're going to do total perimeter feet. Okay, and notice here that it added on to the end. So again, I can have multiple. I'm just going to do total perimeter feet. And I'm just copying and pasting here just because I think it's faster, a little bit easier way. And let's do area. And this procedure that I'm doing now, this is essentially, how you build a title block template. You just you create the data fields that you want. You go in here, you find it, total area, square feet. Okay. Okay. Sorry. So I've created these new templates. I'm going to save this file. And remember that this file, I checked this. Okay, this document is a title block. Okay, and that's important. Save that file. Okay, now I'm going to go back to this layout, and I'm going to say merge. And it's going to say, do you want to reload? I say yes. Brings in those data fields and populates those with those values. Okay, so so that was pretty easy, right? That is how you create new fields and you create new data. Okay, so so I kind of got a little bit of a head start on that, just because I thought it would be easier to sort of show this process. But that's what you do, and it's not a very difficult process. But let's say that instead, let's go to this layout, and let's say instead that you wanted to derive a new template from one of ours or from another one. So there's an easy way to do this. You would go into into the options menu down here, open merge title block file. Okay, so it takes the title block that's open, and it says, okay, I'm going to open that as a as the actual title block file. Okay, and one thing that we've been doing recently within Principal is we have this partnership with Crowtech. We're doing a lot of RGB applications, and this has resulted in us needing some title block templates that have some RGB fields to them. Okay, So what I'm going to do is create a couple of new fields here. And for now, as we work this out in the software, these fields are going to be static fields, okay? And until we get this process a little bit more automated. So I'm just duplicating and I'm creating a new template here, and I'm going to do the same, a new data field. And again, this is text, T for text, and this would be RGB controllers. Okay, and then I'll also duplicate this. Now, when I duplicate an object that's already a data variable, I can edit this, and then I can say, number, controllers. Okay, so when I go in, if this is a manually edited data label, I would just go in and I would edit that text field. Okay. If I wanted to, let me pick one that that we actually have some data for. So let's see. Let's say that we wanted to put to find something that we have in here, total footage, total system power. How about that? Okay, total system power. I'm not sure if that has W on it. I'll add W as the label there. And again, a little bit of effort up front goes a long way in the benefits of having a good title block template. Okay, so I'm going to save this and I'm going to give it a new name because I don't want to overwrite the current one, and this will be Principal Landscape Sticks 2. Okay, RGB controllers, total system power. I'll go back to this layout and I'm going to select Principal Landscape Sticks 2 and merge that. Okay, now I've got my RGB controller field that I can edit. I've got total system power, okay, which is the same as wattage in this case, I guess. I moved the title over here, but that's just an example of real quick on the fly, created a couple new fields, one's static, one's dynamic. It's a pretty clean way to do it. So let's see, that's most of what I wanted to cover today. We actually, for a change, ended a little bit early. So really, I think for this process, what I'd suggest is, I think it's easiest probably to derive a template from an existing template, and the template that that one of the ones you might consider starting with is one of these. So this is let's see what this one is. And again, it's easy to change the template. So this template actually has a letter stats, we call them, and this is an option, which is to have some additional letter stats. And I also mentioned that you can scale a title block template. So let me do that. Scale this down. Remember, I like to have the layout as as big in the file as possible, right? So I'd probably do something like that, and then just make sure that you also scale your outside layout down, because again, you don't want to have a lot of extra white space. If you have a lot of extra white space in your layout area and you export that PDF, then you'll end up wasting a lot of space. But this template is, I think, is good perhaps as a starting point. It has a number of fields down here. It has my legal statement here. It's got some additional data variables that that you could edit. That text is in is in red. So this might be a place to start. A title block template can be oriented in vertical or horizontal. It can have data. I've seen data on all four sides. It just really depends on how you want to do it. But these are, in this case, let me ungroup. These are just vertical or horizontal lines. You can really define this in any way you want, but that's you could derive from this. I've derived title blocks from the principal template to other people as well, and that works out okay as well. So mostly, Lauren, that's what I wanted to cover. Does anybody have any questions?
We haven't received any questions through the question tab today, but please feel free to continue to send those in from the follow-up email that you'll receive after today's webinar. And just know that we have several more trainings coming up in the following Wednesdays, and we'll be sending out links to all of those webinars as well in the follow-up email, so you can register for those then.
Okay, thanks, Lauren. I did want to mention that we have helped customers to set up and optimize their templates. So if that's something that you're interested in having us help with, we'd be happy to do that. At the very least, give some advice as to what works well or what doesn't. I think what I've reviewed is pretty straightforward, but if you're taking an existing template and you're trying to get it into LED Wizard and you want all the same fields and this and that, again, some of these are pretty complex, so that might be a little bit, perhaps a little bit more of a challenge. So again, I think that you might consider starting fresh, bringing over the data that you think is appropriate, and and build up your template based on how I was doing it. It's really an incremental process. There's everything that I showed is the way to do it. It just depends on how many data items that you want to have. So as Lauren mentioned, here's the upcoming webinar schedule. So next week we'll talk about power supply loading, and there are a few different options for power supply loading, and we'll be covering those. Following week, vectorizing, on-screen digitizing, and freehand drawing. These are all options for how to create a layout out of a bitmap, out of something that you've a photograph or just a scanned image or something. How do you make sense of that and create a layout? So that's what we'll be doing on May 20th. And here's my contact information. If anybody wants to reach out and has any questions, you can contact me directly. So I think that's it for today. If there are any more questions, we'll end a few minutes early. Thanks everybody for joining. Again, hope everyone is staying safe and healthy. Looks like that we're at least heading in the right direction of getting things moving again. So hopefully we'll see an uptick in activity in the industry. And with that, we'll sign off if there's nothing else, Lauren.
That's it. You guys enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
All right, thanks everyone.